Welcome to another episode of Season 3 of the Panjwai Podcast. As usual, you can find our episodes on YouTube, Facebook, and your favorite podcast platform, whether that's Spotify or Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio. You pick it, we're there.
If you want to support the podcast financially, we've set up a few ways for you to do so this season. You can become a patron by hopping over to patreon.com/thepanjwai podcast and sign up for a small monthly donation. If you want to make a one-time donation, you can find us on Venmo at the Panjwai Podcast. And last but not least, we've got a small selection of merchandise in our store. So if you head over to thepanjwaipodcast.com and click on the store tab, you'll see stickers and other merchandise, and who knows what might come down the pipeline.
All that I can hope is you take me with you when you go. I guess I should have known I can't leave with you when you go. Now Cow Island is awfully quiet, with your screen door staying closed. And if I learned French like you told me, baby, I would hear your ghost.
Or years before I left, if one of my lads had come up to me and said, like, things are a bit weird, or just feeling a bit funny, and I'd have probably just dismissed it,
Yeah.
I would have just said, like, get home, go home for the weekend, sort the missus out, have a few beers, and see you on Monday, and that's the end of it,
Yeah.
But then when it happens to you, it's a bit like, shit, this is actually a thing,
Yeah.
But
yeah, I feel like the culture whenever I joined the military was like, it was very much still a military at war, like they were still in the midst of GWAT. And, my drill sergeants and my NCOs and stuff when I first joined, it was very much like staying focused on the mission, pushing through, driving through the next thing. And, that conversation about PTS or PTSD or whatever the fuck you want to call it, like it was just starting to work its way into the fabric of, like I said, the larger culture, but especially the military culture. And unfortunately for us, at least on the American side, the larger culture took it and ran with it and turned it to a bastardized Hollywood version that sells bad TV. So that was like a weird spin that we had to recover from for a few years. But it's
also a lot of people took it and took advantage of it.
Yeah.
So, we added this little bit of leeway. We're like, okay, well, if you're crazy, then we're going to give you some time to figure it out. People are like, oh my God, I'm so crazy. And we're like, okay, well, now you're taking advantage of the system. There was never much of like a gray area where it was working the way it was supposed to completely. But I know it was weird on our deployment to have like combat stress come to our base. Like that was, couldn't have imagined something like that would be a thing. But it was. They're trying at least.
Yeah, they're doing good things now, and you speak to the lads that they're still in, and they're putting. There's more checks and balances basically for looking at what blokes have done before, what tours they've been on, if the big incidents that they've been involved in, and start maybe raising flags really that some guys on their fifth tour or whatever, and they've been they've had all action tours from the get go. Then it might be an idea to let someone have a chat with them.
But I mean, we definitely me and Curtis were kind of on the receiving end of the consequences of that to a degree with a couple of our leadership. Like guys that were on their fifth tour, and it's like this perfect cocktail of PTSD and TBI, where between the two of them, you just got a recipe for someone who can't get their shit together or can't keep it together. And so it's good that it's being addressed, especially in the military, because I don't know. I think on the back end of that, you're going to have a stronger leaders, stronger soldiers, especially.
Yeah, exactly. You need, and you know, it's the same as, you know, physical. You wouldn't send someone out if they were broken physically, you know. So that's the kind of way I see it. It's like,
yeah,
but and just things have changed, and you know how things are just dealt with, and I think it's all going in the right direction. But yeah, I was still kind of in the era of, you know, the big kind of alcohol culture and things like that, and in the military, and you know, a lot of heavy drinking and stuff, which isn't, you know, was kind of the way that we dealt with things, you know.
Yeah,
we're same as you guys.
Same.
You come back and you just have a massive blowout on the booze, you know, and that was like your kind of decompression, you know. That was like, oh, that will sort it out, you know. When actually,
well, I've always said that I definitely learned to drink in the Army. Like, you know, I drank before I went to the Army, but the Army is when I learned to drink. You know, as a means by which to achieve something.
Yeah.
So on that note, though, we're sitting here with Kieran Rafferty from across the pond, as you've probably discerned by his accent. Kieran was a Royal Marine Commando. Yeah. So, Kieran, you know, thanks for hopping on here with us, man. And the way we usually kick these things off is we give people kind of the short and dirty version of why you joined the military and kind of how you ended up choosing the route that you chose and how you ended up in Panjwai. So give us the spiel, man.
Cheers, Luke. Thanks, guys, for having me on. So kind of strange way of ended up in Panjwai. Probably one of the only a handful of Brits that actually served out there during the time. I'm sure we'll go on to that, but yeah, basically, so my kind of military history. I didn't come from a military family. No one really apart from, you know, grandparents that were in the Second World War and things. Was kind of average at school, kind of must try harder type, could do better student. Didn't really interest me a great deal. I was more interested in kind of the sporting aspect of education, so playing for the teams and stuff, and playing sports at the weekend, playing the rugby and that, and when I could, I basically just said, right, I'm gonna try and join up. I'm not really sure why I picked the Marines over anything else. I mean, they've got the kind of reputation goes before them as being kind of probably one of the toughest kind of units within the British forces to get into and to pass the training. And I think I just was in the mindset of then, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to join the best, you know, see how I get on. And so it's the commando training's it's about 7 months long, give or take, and it's all done down in the south coast, the south coast of Britain. And turned up day one, rabbit in the headlights, like a boy just stepping into I was, because I kind of got like a pretty normal background, you know. I wouldn't say relatively privileged in that, brought up in a really nice place, always went to good schools, not overly wealthy or anything, but was comfortable, you know. We didn't really want for anything. Me and my siblings didn't really want for anything. So I turned up at the training establishment in Lympstone, and I was just in a room with like men, you know, like and I was just looking across at some of the guys, and they're from sort of tougher backgrounds than me, much tougher backgrounds than me, and, you know, older than me, and I just thought I've signed up for something here. I'm not sure whether I'm in the right place here. But yeah, did all right. Got through training. Same as pretty much, all military training is hard, isn't it? And you're supposed to be tired.
So how old?
Wet.
How old were you when you joined?
Yes, I joined at 18. Yeah, okay. So you can go in you can go in before that over here. But I just joined after I was nearly 19 actually, probably 18 and a half, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and that was it really. Completed the training, the commando training, and headed off to one of the units, which I spent a lot of my time at 4-5 Commando, which is based up in Scotland, which is a great unit. I absolutely loved it. Did the majority of my career there.
So one of the things that kind of sets you apart from a significant portion of our interviewees is that you've got multiple combat deployments, and you got to go to both Iraq and Afghanistan. So kind of run us through like your deployment history. Where'd you go? What'd you do? To what degree that you can tell us?
Like you said, Luke, it was mostly Afghanistan and Iraq. Went to first tour in Afghanistan was post 9/11. So unit got stood up after the events, and we pushed out to Bagram initially, and then moved down sort of the kind of Gardaires kind of coast area, and spent a fair bit of time up in the mountains there, and just kind of bouncing back and forth from Bagram, which was it was a really good experience. To be honest, it was kind of what the expeditionary element of it, the kind of mountainous and expeditionary element of the tour was right up our street basically as our unit as 4-5 Commando. Yeah, so it was good, real eye opener. Just didn't really know what to expect, and we were really knee deep snow, high altitude, having to deal with different issues. Aside from the kind of enemy threat, the kind of altitude sickness, stuff like that, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
good tour though.
So, what was? Did you guys see any combat that tour, or was it pretty quiet by the time you guys got there?
Yeah, it was pretty quiet to be honest, because it's just after Anaconda. Had happened, so we literally were going out there, kind of, if I remember correctly, is to like relief in place for other units, and we hooked up with other Australian SF units, and we're basically just carrying on the clear up through the valleys, basically, and over the ranges. But
imagine after Anaconda, the Al Qaeda and Taliban. I mean, they all got the Al Qaeda especially. They got monkey stomped as much as we did on that. So like their fighting spirit was probably done, and it was the winter. Fighting season was done for the mountains.
Yeah, and exactly. We're coming into the kind of all the passes that start to close off with the snow and everything. So as that, we kind of headed into the kind of low ground then, and we did a lot of stuff around the that southeastern kind of area. That was good, Nice. Completely different though. Completely different.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I mean, there was obviously like pretty much zero IED threat. I mean, there's obviously the mine issue, and the kind of legacy minefields from the Soviet times and things like that, and ones that have been repurposed and stuff like that. But we were just rolling around soft skin vehicles again. And not in any way that we would be now, when later deployments.
What was the next one? Was back to Afghanistan, or was that your Northern Ireland?
No, so then it was, so that's 2000. So yeah, 2003. Yeah, I went to Iraq was involved in the invasion in 2003. So I was operating up in the Western Desert, with the UKSF, and yeah, interesting time.
Yeah,
cool. It was a lot busier than the Afghan deployment, but yeah, it was good. And that was kind of a bit of a whirlwind trip, really. Very much sort of in kind of pre the invasion, and then pretty quickly out once what had been needed to be done was done, you know. So
so this is gonna be off the record, but were you like fucking up like Iranian or Syrian shit out there, or was it just kind of like Iraqi army?
It was pretty pretty much Iraqi army.
Yeah.
Republican Guard. Yeah, so that was kind of
nice.
Yeah.
Good
Interesting.
times.
Right, yeah, good times. Good times for us. Not so much for them. But
yeah, right.
Yeah. And then came back from that, and much as like the strangest contrast, then bounced off into Northern Ireland tour.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre.
So wild.
Weird.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to come back from Afghanistan and deploy you to Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, obviously, like, there's a deep history there. And we were post the ceasefire in '96. So essentially what they would sort of class as a peacetime tour. Although you're still going, out with you're still all armed and everything like that, and you're still conducting the same kind of drills on the ground that we would. We kind of it's just your posturing was just slightly different. So, for example, you wouldn't be patrolling in helmets, you'd be patrolling in berets and things like that. But yeah, so and that was interesting. Like, I'd never been to Ireland before, obviously. Know all about the troubles that, and having spoken to the instructors that kind of took me through training, most of their experience was from Northern Ireland and the Falklands. Sure. So, and that you hear about the back in the day when Ireland was really, really kicking off.
Yeah,
it was really tasty, but. So it did that. So came off that. It was one of the last. I mean, Ireland tours that would have been, because I think not long after that they started really scaling back everything.
Sure.
While we were there, they were shutting down a lot of the kind of cops or the security bases there. So part of our role was just to try and oversee this kind of smooth transition,
Well, the Brits are also getting drawn into Afghanistan hardcore around that time too. So they only got so many resources to spend. They can't have dudes just walking around for no reason in Northern Ireland.
So that was like kind of 2004. So we're starting to get into the kind of 2005 sort of time. So we're starting to get into the Helmand the Helmand campaign starting off. The 3 paralads went out there from the parachute regiment, 3rd Battalion, the parachute regiment. They went out down into sort of Sangin, and it was kind of the that infamous kind of comment of it'll be over in 6 weeks without firing a shot and things like that. Didn't age well, that. So yeah, and then we I went out in 2006 to Helmand, and that's when it was that tour 2006-07 that I ended up in the Panjwai and Sperwan Ghar, more to the point.
So you started that deployment in Helmand.
Yeah, started that in Helmand.
Okay.
So I was looking after there was a team of us working with the ANA, basically, training the ANA and basically mentoring them out on the ground, trying to get them out. They were sort of semi-way through their training, so they weren't like raw recruits. So they were kind of, it was just scaling them up for operations, really, for actually getting out on the ground. So the first part of that deployment was taking the ANA out and basically trying to assist in other elements in Helmand that needed an ANA footprint or an ANA face, basically. So we would take them out, and it kind of worked in two ways. We wanted to get them out and get them sort of blooded, so to speak.
Sure.
As well as obviously supporting the efforts of the other Brit forces, and there was a few ODAs as well rolling about in Helmand at that time, down in the sort of Garmsea area. So there was teams getting tasked over there. There was teams getting tasked over to like Spinboldak and places like that. So yeah, we were just kind of training on the job with the ANA. It was kind of, let's go out and take a patrol down here. Not necessarily you knew you were going to get hit, but there's a good chance that something would happen, and then there's a good chance that we're going to be able to test these guys under fire, basically.
Yeah. So what was that experience like working with the ANA down there? I mean, was it?
I mean, like there were good guys. There were good guys amongst them. We actually had quite a good leadership team within the ANA we were working with. Kind of seasoned guys that like fought the Russians and stuff, and
Yeah.
So they knew that they know about warfare, right? They know about fighting. They've kind of lived with it. They know about life and death and stuff. So they're not naive to that. And then you have all the, in the same way that you guys probably experienced, the attitudes can vary greatly amongst, ANA soldiers from one man to the next,
Yeah.
And there was guys that you would say 100% like they're going to be, if one of us got wounded, you would think there's 100% those guys going to come and help you, and then on the other hand, you could look across another bunch and say 100% they would just leave you,
Yeah.
And we had that. We had an incident like that in Sperwan Ghar where not our ANA, but the ANA just basically turned and got on their heels, when we were in it pretty thick at the time. But yeah, so we had those issues, and it's difficult because of my biggest thing was always the language barrier and the comms, having to relay that through your terps, and then they've got to try and relay it to the commanders, and they don't have, for obvious reasons, they haven't got radios the same way that, well, at the time, I don't know if it's changed now, it might have changed now, but they weren't on the same comms as ours, and so it just makes being in a contact just that much more difficult to manage, because it's hard enough as it is when you all speak the same language and everyone's on the same net. Things get confusing. Things get you have to really keep those comms channels clear.
So
we try and do different language.
It sounds pretty similar to our experience with ANA. Like, some dudes are super squared away and they were good to go, and some dudes were a hammered bag of shit. And then some dudes, like, some units were really good and some units were really bad. Some platoons were good and some were bad. So it sounds very, very similar to what we went through. So, your mentorship or your time leading the ANA is how you ended up at Sperwan Ghar, right?
Yeah. So basically, we got myself and our team basically got the nod that we were going to be going to Sperwan Ghar to assist with the to help with the ODAs that were working out of Sperwan Ghar at the time, and provide ANA support, and also trying to put an Afghan face on the operations basically. So it's less about seeing American and British faces patrolling around. They wanted to see that Afghan face,
and to frame it for people that are listening, like, you showed up at Sperwan Ghar pretty soon after Operation Medusa, and all those guys actually took Sperwan Ghar. So ISAF presence in Panjwai was very fresh when you showed up.
Is a month? Not even after?
Probably
Medusa?
not even. Yeah, probably not. I don't know the exact dates of Medusa, and I can't remember exactly when we flew out, but we kind of got there September 2006. So
a month after Medusa, basically. Yeah.
So there was a lot of, and we didn't really know. To be honest, we didn't know a great deal about the AO, and it was a real fastball. Our move up there was literally like, guys, we need to get you to Kandahar now, and then we pretty much bounced straight through within a day up to Sperwan Ghar. Me and another lad, another chap called Tam, a Glaswegian fella, who was kind of my senior at the time, so he was kind of like my commander, so to speak. But we worked together for years and years in the same unit, so it was good to know that I was going up there with him as well. And they just said, "You're going up to this place called Sperwan Ghar." Didn't really know much about it. Obviously, we knew from all the in briefs that you have in your own AOs, other things that are happening, but you don't necessarily take that much of a wider view on things because you're so focused on what's happening. Yeah. And brief was very brief. It's like, get on this helicopter, you go into this place, right? Okay, fine. Like, what is it? What's it going to be like? Is it? I'd seen a couple of aerial pictures and things, aerial thoughts of Sperwan Ghar, but that was about it, really. Yeah.
So when you got to Sperwan Ghar and you actually started stomping around, so what was your time like there? When you guys got on the ground, you kind of told us the other day that when you showed up, people were wondering, who the hell are these guys? What are they doing here?
Funnily enough, we when we were flying out there, so it was just me and Tam on a Chinook, and the guys had said, okay, it's the flight time's whatever it is, 40 minutes or however long it takes, and we started getting close, and the Chinook starts turning round and things, and the loadie came up and said, "Oh, there's we can't land at the moment because there's a contact happening at the fob." So we were like, "Fucking hell, this place is."
Welcome to Sperwan Ghar.
Okay, yeah. So we were like, right, okay, it's like that, is it? So that automatically gets the kind of pulse racing a bit. So we flew about for a bit, and then they said, okay, we're going to put you in, and we didn't know, was it still, was the contact still happening? What was it? Was it like, was the contact in the wire? Or so we kind of got off the helo ready to go, and there's people just walking about with coffees and stuff, and I was like, they must have just been like, who are these two characters that just come running off the back of this helo, into all-round defense. But so we turned up and kind of found we were staying in the schoolhouse, and sort of touched base with the commander there, and they were a bit the same. They were kind of a bit like, who are you guys? And we were like, well, we're the lead element of the Brits that are coming up. And they were like, okay, it's the first we'd heard about it. I'm sure they hadn't, I'm sure they knew we were coming, but and we just kind of we just got on with it from there. they'd been in a big contact that day. They just got back, and the FOB was taking kind of small arms and some rockets and things. So they were calling stuff in from the OP on the hill. So we went up to the OP just to get a kind of brief of the AO, and we started getting our heads into the maps and stuff and chatting to the lads and trying to get a feel for what was going on. And it was good. Good.
So when you guys got there, was it Canadian and USSF? Is that who was there at the time?
Yeah, so it was the ODA 3. I think it was 384. Now, if I've got that wrong, I apologise if any of those guys are listening. But so they were there, and they were who we were going to be working with. And that, like I said, they'd been out on the ground that day, and they'd had the QRF, the Canadian QRF, out with them, which was the Canadians were providing QRF with the lavs and things, And we didn't have our A&A with us at the time, so we were essentially like we were just going up as a kind of forward element, and we spoke to the boss of the SF team, and he was like, well, do you want to come out with us? We're going out again in the morning or early hours. You fancy it? And we were like, yeah, too right. So we just jumped in with the guys, which was great. It was fantastic because one, we were having heard of all the stuff that was going on and how sort of kinetic the area was. We were keen to get out. And two, it just gave us, it was like a fantastic ground brief, actually on the ground, And,
so at that time, the SF was the primary maneuver element, not the ANA, and not the Canadians.
Yeah. So they had like, there was ANA there that were kind of being mentored by the ODA, and ours were supposed to arrive. If I remember this correctly, ours was supposed to arrive follow on in a few days or a couple of weeks, and something happened and there was a big mix up, so it didn't turn up for a while. Basically, it didn't turn up till pretty close to Batzuka. We went on Batzuka in December, I think. So they didn't really. So we had kind of a couple of months, a month and a half, where it was just myself and Tam, just jumping in with the ODA basically, and basically anyone that was going out, we would just try and get on and get out with them. But yeah, so we started out with the ODA with 384, and then they swapped out, and Rusty's team came back. So we worked with both those teams, and like to a man, they were just great guys. Honestly, we had a great time with them. In fact, the day after we got there, we went out in the morning again and got into it pretty big straight away.
That's another good welcome package.
Yeah. It was quick. It's good though, because it's you've literally just met these blokes, and they've literally just met us, and then the next thing you're all out, and everyone's fighting next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, and everyone's covering each other, doing all the skills and drills and everything, So it's a good feeling that you can just kind of jump in with whoever, and we saw that was my first experience of seeing of working with Canadians. We had the lavs out with us, and they were great, Good to see those cannons going,
So I mean, you got there in like September, and you've been there for a couple months, kind of rolling on your own. But once your ANA started showing to the base, that was kind of preceding this large clearing operation that was coming up, right?
Yeah, so we kind of got there, and we realised that we'd been given the briefs and everything, given the kind of ground brief that the AO was far from clear,
right.
After they'd obviously just re-infiltrated after after the Medusa. So it was all building towards clearing west, basically. Op Baztuka was what we were next planning for. So we'd got our guys there. So we got our A&A there. We got the rest of there's about another 6 or 7 guys, Brit guys came up from our unit. So and our sort of hierarchy as well. So they'd all arrived at Sperwan Ghar by this stage, and the ODAs had swapped out, and it was Rusty's team were back. Obviously, we didn't initially know the significance of them being back until we, got a chance to sort of chat to them and everything, and find out they were the guys that actually cleared it and had taken it, which was pretty. So we got to speak to them about that. Obviously, a wealth of experience in the area, and with those guys as well. They'd been Rusty, especially, had been doing this and working with the A&A for a long, long time. So we're good to tap into their knowledge base, really, and learn, because we'd never really, our job wasn't necessarily to work with indigenous forces like that, So it was a good experience for ourselves, and we just started running up training basically for the big push. We'd go back to Mahalik, Firebase Mahalik, so we'd rotate back to Kandahar, do some training with the A&A there, all the usual kind of stuff, weapons training, medical training, drills, actions on, all this stuff. So constantly working them up as best we could to as good a standard as we thought they were going to get before we pushed west. And myself and Tam, we obviously had the benefit of having been in the AO now for a while with the guys, and sort of knew what potentially what this op could be, and it could be, everyone I guess everyone thought it was going to be pretty tasty. And we were just working up to that. So between Sperwan Ghar and Mahalik for a few weeks, really, until we got the green light to go ahead and push in. We'd set up a few kind of small checkpoints and things. We put some checkpoints out down on Route Brown, and it was Foster, Route Fosters. We used to call it Fosters.
Yeah.
It was Hyena or something when you got, by the time you guys got there, was it? Or was that right?
Hyena was the east-west running road that went down the length of the Horn was Hyena for us.
Right.
Route Brown headed straight out of Sperwan Ghar and connected
it was
to
like
Hyena.
North and south, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so we put one basically at that junction of the Arghandab. We put one there, and it used to get hit quite a bit, actually. We did a few, went with the Canadian sniper pairs. We would go down there and sort of try and wait and ambush the Taliban that were coming to hit the checkpoint, which was pretty good.
Any success there?
Not really. I mean, we'd see a bit. It was just difficult. It was just a bit sketchy cutting about out front of the A&A at night. When they're waiting to be, when they know that there's potentially an attack out there, we're always a bit like, But it was good. We're just trying to disrupt the patterns. But and then once we spent a lot of time doing rehearsals and things for Baztuka, and then we pushed on. I think it was the start of December. We left. It was our team actually were the first out the fob, and it had been built up to being a pretty. We're expecting a lot of contact basically. We had and the original ODA that we'd worked with, they came back up for it as well. So there was a lot of teams on the ground that had good knowledge of the AO, and we went out and pushed out straight into our first sort of objectives. I think from memory was like Zangabad Ghar was to get up there as quickly as possible, get on the high ground, and then just start dropping ordnance. Yeah, if we needed to, you know.
Yeah. Did you guys? So you left Sperwan Ghar and pushed west to Zangabad Ghar.
Yeah. So we were there. I think we were, as I remember it, we got contacted on the first day in the evening. We thought that we were going to get a lot more contact initially, but I think there'd been like a fair bit of sort of psyops going on, and I think there'd have been a bit of to and froing with the district governor and the Taliban, and they kind of talked, didn't they, on the radio and stuff, and they kind of said like we're coming to get you,
Yeah.
I don't think it was much of a surprise, put it that way. And I think the Taliban had pretty much bugged out to not in total, because they still put up a bit of a fight, but not to the level we expected.
Yeah.
So the first day, we pushed on. We actually hit an ID on the first day. Thankfully, no one was injured, but under there was a culvert in the road, basically, and there was it was like the kind of if you're gonna put an ID somewhere, that would be the place that you put it. And we got the dogs out, and all the detectors and all the ECM kit was out, and people had kind of walked over it, and people had been over it on quads, and nothing had gone off. And then the team's up-armoured Humvee went over it, and it went up, But I think it was probably the fact it was an up-armoured Humvee was the fact thankfully no casualties,
Yeah. And that, ironically, that's probably what set it off, too, because like one thing that we've not really taken a dive into on the Panjwai podcast is like the pressure plates. We've talked about them before and how they work. I'm assuming it was pressure plate, or was it commandet, or do you guys have
No, I think it was pressure plate, yeah. Because there was people like poking around it, and there's people walking over it and stuff, and if it was command wire or something, they'd have clacked it off before then, I thought.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've not talked about is like pressure plates can be built for different weights. So that if a lighter weight thing drives over or walks over a pressure plate, but they want to target a larger object, then they can build them to take on that weight. And then that's when the electric connection is made, the explosive goes off. So you could stomp. There's probably pressure plates out there you could jump on and not get it to connect. Yeah. As soon as you drive that, however many tons of GMV over, it's going to go up.
Well, that was also their way of making sure that, children wouldn't step on them.
Yeah,
they'd make it so a kid could walk on it all day, but the American soldier weighing 300 pounds with gear is going to set it off.
Yeah,
that too.
Like the 2 bits of sponge, would be for anti-personnel, and then they might put water bottles or full water bottles for vehicles, But yeah, so that went up, and immediately we were like, just try and clear an HLS, but thankfully there was no casualties. But that was day one, the morning of day one. So those guys, we pushed on. I think my memory's a bit of the old brain fog, but we pushed on to close to Zangabad Ghar that night. At last light, there was the lead element got contacted. It wasn't my team directly, but and then we pushed over to Zangabad Ghar and just took that basically.
So did you guys push past? Did you guys push past Zangabad Ghar? Or did you kind of hang out there and just?
No, so we were back there because we got contacted again the next day. I'm pretty sure we had a night there, uneventful night. We had the the C-130 gunship up. So we had a pretty quiet night. They were engaging some targets, but further west, I think. And then in the morning we got contacted again, and we had a pretty lively day actually. That second day, there was a bit of IDF. Someone actually tried to fire a mortar at an Apache, which I thought was pretty stupid idea, really. But you never know. They could have got lucky, but so they got dealt with pretty quickly. So there was a lot of movement in depth, and we were getting engaged with some IDF as well. So we managed to get some ordnance down, and then we pushed on. From there, we pushed on west right up to Mushan, basically. Linked up with there was a Shura in the Mushan area, so we kind of linked up with them, and then pushed on to there was an old hospital, old clinic, I think it was, or was it a schoolhouse? No, it was an old clinic, like an old. I think it had been built as part of the kind of a stabilization type thing or UN thing. And we set up in there. We basically set up in there for a good period of time. We were there for a few days actually. Nothing too. I don't think we got any contact there actually. Can't remember now. No, I don't think we did. We caught a couple of guys putting IEDs in. The ANA went out one night and caught a guy putting IEDs in and brought him back, and he got processed through,
Did he get processed through, or did he get it processed through?
I know. No, yeah. He didn't get...
I feel like a common experience for us, I don't know, the common experience for us, as soon as the Afghan allies got a hold of them, not us as in like the Americans, but as soon as we handed them prisoners off, they would get processed through.
They wanted to. They basically brought him back to the schoolhouse. I remember it coming back at night, and they wanted to sort him out. I think they were up for just taking him into the desert and cutting his head off or something. But Rusty and the guys, obviously, they're obviously not going to let that happen. So we kind of. And this is where you saw the kind of, I suppose we saw the kind of experience that the team had, that they'd been working a lot with the ANA and stuff, and that they knew how to they dealt with it they swept that situation up pretty quick, and they said right now he's the property of of US forces now, so that's it. There's no more funny business. This is we do it the way it's supposed to be done, So, that was good. Yeah, and he was shipped off, and we stayed there. And then I think in behind, they were putting in the checkpoints all up through the valley and up Route Fosters, and we came back for I remember us coming back for Thanksgiving. They wanted us, the high command of the TF-31 guys came up to Sperwan Ghar with Thanksgiving dinner and stuff for the guys. So we all went back down for that, and we kind of rotated through, which was pretty good.
So after you guys got done clearing the horn and pushing out through there, like, what was the rest of that time at Sperwan Ghar like? Like, pretty chill, or?
Yeah, in comparison to kind of how it started,
comparatively
it was,
chill. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
pretty chill for Afghanistan is, just a firefight every 2 weeks instead of every 2 days.
They were, we were supporting the checkpoints, because the checkpoints were out now. The ANA, AMP, kind of collaboration's never really that great. Those two working together, these pretty much hate each other as well. And they were getting taken on every now and then, the Taliban would come on and take quite heavily, would engage one of the checkpoints, and we'd sort of QRF out from Sperwan Ghar and try and assist if we could and things. But you're turning up to, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're turning up in the middle at night to an ongoing firefight between the ANP and the Taliban, or the ANA and the Taliban. A lot of scope for things to go south there,
big time.
As to like, and it goes back to that thing about the comms and stuff, and the difficulties of not being able to speak the same language, not being all being on the same comms and stuff. So, but they did all right, They never got overrun or anything. So, it was pretty good. We pushed north of the Arghandab as well. We did a kind of clearance op out that side. And we had quite a sort of narrow corridor of operations there, but that was good change of scenery, different part of the AO. But yeah, that was it really. And we kind of wound down what we were doing there, and we got retasked eventually, which was sort of February, March time. So did a good.
So you finished. So you start in Helmand, middle stints in Sperwan, Ascend and Helmand.
Yeah, back to Helmand. So I went back to Sangin then, which was really, it was really hot at the time. There was a lot of activity in Sangin. I joined back up with the rest of the unit, and was just operating out of that area, the sort of Upper Sangin Valley. A real kind of contrast in the two places, because a lot more indirect fire over in Helmand. We're getting rockets a lot. We hardly got the strange thing about Sperwan Ghar. We hardly got any IDF. We got every now and then we'd get a rocket in or something, but they weren't really accurate, and they never really hit anything. But we went over back into Sangin, getting like accurate mortar fire and accurate rockets, and they had the fobs pretty dialed in, and you get it 2-3 times a day. And just different kind of fighting, although you're literally, only really on the grand scheme of things miles apart.
Yeah, I mean, I think I looked at it one time on Google Maps, and I think the Sangin Valley was only like, as the crow flies, it was only like 25 or 6 miles from Panjwai, from Sperwan Ghar. So like in a direct line, it's not very far, but totally different world in some ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Even the firefights were just different, a lot more because you guys know yourself, Panjwai is so it's so tight, the kind of all the little rat runs and the grape huts, and it's just like really kind of dense. Whereas there was a bit more standoff out, and it seemed to be a little bit more standoff. I mean, there were still elements of, there was still times we got into it pretty close over in Helmand at close ranges and stuff, but every kind of contact in Sperwan Ghar was pretty up close and personal,
Well, that's been a discernible difference that I've noticed with other Afghan veterans. Is like one of the biggest things that most Afghan veterans talk about is the distance. Like everybody's we're being engaged at 500 and 600 meters because the Taliban knew the effective range of 5.56, and so they would engage these guys from 700 meters across the valley with with bigger arms and bigger munitions or whatever. And for us, for me, that just sounds so strange because everything we ever did was within 200 meters. It was 20 feet to 200 meters was kind of like the range that we worked in. And so, that never, I never really quite could wrap my mind around the idea of duking it out over, a click.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I think it's just the kind of, the layout of the ground as well, and how it's all built up and stuff, and It was definitely more up close in the Panjwai, and but then again, we didn't have the IDF threats, and the camp wasn't getting mortared 3 times a day, so it's kind of it was all different kind of.
Yeah,
there wasn't many IEDs around.
Where could you launch IDF from to get on Sperwan Ghar?
The desert,
nowhere.
Reggae.
The Reg. Yeah.
Like maybe if you had a vehicle, you could do it from the edge, but I mean,
that's it.
It just there wasn't a whole lot, and you were super exposed. And I know one thing that always stood out to me, the difference, at least flying over Panjwai versus flying over Helmand, is that Helmand looks like they actually had like a city planner. Like somebody actually laid out like streets and like plots, and like, everybody's property is about the same size. It's like, this is your 2-acre plot and this is your 2-acre plot. Whereas Panjwai just looks like they just like this, like a 2-year-old, like draw his own like property boundaries on it. Like you have no idea who owns what. Like there's no clear road structure. It's just like thrown together. Yeah. I mean, there really aren't even any roads except on the boundaries of Panjwai.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw a picture the other day somewhere, and I can't remember where it was I saw it, but it was of Helmand. It was actually of Sangin. It was of the valley. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy to see that, this valley that had, elevation on both sides. So that, there's your rockets right there. But then it was like this cluster of villages, and then the distance between the villages was probably 600 or 700 meters, and it was almost wide open. It was very interesting to see that difference right there. And then I'd imagine once you got down closer to the river and closer to the water, it got thick and bushy, just like Panjwai does. But I don't think the green belt's as wide in the Sangin as it is in Panjwai.
No, I don't think so. I think that's right. It's like you say, Curtis, it's just like a muddle of. It was just like a muddle of kind of huts and walls, and there was no sense to it really.
Right.
And it was, it's definitely everything's seemed to be a lot more linear out in Helmand. You kind of, you're on an irrigation ditch is running this way for this many meters, and et cetera, as opposed to the Panjwai. It was just everything's just all over the shop.
Yeah.
But, it was, and we didn't so much have the IED threat either at that time in 2006. I mean, there was obviously the IED threat because we had there had been IEDs, and I know that the teams had been hit by IEDs and things, but to the point where your concern was more about small arms contacts than it was about standing on something. Whereas flip forward to 2010, 2011, which was my kind of last tour.
Yeah, and like one thing that was always, again, flying from over top of Helmand and Panjwai, not necessarily the ground perspective, was that because Helmand was a little bit more like a suburb in the cities, there wasn't as much white space in like the agricultural areas. Whereas around Sperwan Ghar, you kind of had the mountains to the south and those open deserts where you could take those labs or you could take vehicles and you can kind of do a button hook. So while you did have to do these really, really long dismounted patrols, if something bad happened, if you wanted to go north or south, you were never more than 2 clicks away from some sort of mounted support. But flying over Helmand, there were areas where I'm like, man, there's places where there's nowhere to go. There's no way to get to you. There's no way to do that kind of thing. So was that pretty consistent in Helmand, or am I misinterpreting that?
No. I mean, there's obviously different kind of areas of the province as it all just follows up the river, and the further kind of north you get, the more it kind of opens out slightly. But you put places like Ghar, I mean, that's kind of that was the provincial capital, so built up area.
Right.
And we would take the A&A and try and push them through there when we first got them. Like I said before, trying to get them a bit kind of combat experience or kind of operational experience, on the job training. And then as you pushed further up the through the kind of Sangin Valley, from the lower to the upper Sangin Valley. Yeah, you'd have you'd have parts of that where you've got the mountains kind of either side, and then the green zone in the middle. So you had a bit of standoff if you needed it. But we were always on foot. Basically, we always patrolled on foot, really. So any of the operations that we did down there were on the Mark ones.
What was the, like, you know, we talked about how in Panjwai everything's really close and bushy, and the only fight that's like comparative, I think, to that particular part of Kandahar is Helmand. But even then, there's like some pretty serious differences. Notably, like Helmand's considerably more arid. At least it seems like it is from the pictures and stuff I've seen. So, what were some of the big differences in how the enemy fought there versus Panjwai?
Well, we after when I returned to Helmand after Panjwai, I went to Sangin. I was just south of Sangin, a place called Fob Robinson, and just IDF, lots of IDF. That's the first thing. So mortars, rockets, 2-3 times a day. More IEDs. Well, it seemed like there were more IEDs. We might not have hit so many in Panjwai, and then because we were more foot patrolling in Helmand, I guess there's more chance of hitting more IEDs, maybe. So, and I mean, the engagements were still the kind of same. Usually, instigated RPG to kick it off, and then kind of small arms or a kind of medium length, maybe RPG or airburst RPG, and then small arms fire, or at a longer length, you might get. I know on my last tour we came across a couple of dushkas in the area, and they would take us on and take on the fob and some of the observation posts and things, which was we obviously went out and found them, tried to find them, but they're causing problems for a bit, but the same as Panjwai, they always instigate the contact a fraction too early. I always thought, if they're just a little bit more disciplined, just wait slightly longer, they'd probably get, plus the accuracy of the shooting,
What about the movement in Helmand? Was it mostly on roads or along paths, or did you have to do the same thing you did in Panjwai? You had to really get off of those.
Yeah, same. So you didn't really want to be more so in when I went back in 2010 or 2008, 9, yeah. Obviously, the ID threat had gone up even more again, and they were evolving their tactics even more, knowing that that's their best chance of doing damage was to IED and then with a follow-up shoot. So we'd have that quite a lot. Had that on a number of occasions.
So other than the differences just between Helmand and Kandahar and the fighting, what were some of the differences between operating under your organic British military command and being kind of attached to SOTIF or even just conventional American forces?
Well, I suppose the initial thing that stands out most, I suppose, was the there's obviously the terminology difference already with all the acronyms, We were the first night we got to Sperwan Ghar, we went into the ops room, which you not even call an ops room, but we call it the ops room. And we were just looking over the plans for the next day, because the guy said, look, if you want to jump on, come out with us, come out, And it's basically just talking in acronyms that we were like, not quite sure what that means. Kind of have a hazard a guess at what that one means, but so even though everyone speaks the same language, you kind of don't speak the same language. There was that element, and there was obviously the the structure of the team, having never really worked with an ODA before, it's knowing exactly what the kind of warbat is and how, the configurations they're gonna operate in and stuff. But to be honest, it's once you get out there and it gets noisy, everyone's doing the same things. To be honest,
Right.
And that's kind of the beauty of. I was thinking about it the other day, actually, after our chat. There's the kind of beauty of what we do is that you can literally slip into a team, and within an hour or so, you're in contact, and everyone's just covering each other. Everyone's cover and maneuver, and it's kind of seamless. I mean, we brushed over some. A few kind of actions on before we went out, just to, especially with the vehicles, just how they wanted to maneuver with the vehicles and certain things and where they wanted us and all that kind of stuff, and how to fit in if, certain contacts happen or we're trying to break contact, But I ended up driving one of the vehicles for a few times, which was pretty cool. Quick Humvee check test around the gravel. Good to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely not much of a learning curve with the Humvee. Turn it on, press the gas pedal, and go. It's a pretty forgiving vehicle.
I mean, if you can drive a Land Rover Defender, you can drive anything.
And I would say it does not go the other way around. Ability to drive a Humvee does not translate to being able to drive a Land Rover.
Yeah.
But and these were like. And I think the guys that appreciated having a couple of extra bods on the team, just to sort of, it's just more, it's two more guns at the end of the day, isn't it? And
right,
two more people to cover spaces, to cover gaps indoors, and to help, jump in the driver's seat and drive a vehicle, down there and stuff. So yeah, it was good, but it was kind of like I said before, we were kind of just. For the first month or so, we were just these two. Me and Tam were just these two British guys that were just kind of cutting about and trying to get on on anything that was going, basically. So we were tapping up the Canadians for if they were going to do anything, and it was good. It wasn't really till the op to the west, the operation to the west, that we got. A few more of our lads came in, and it got a bit more structured for ourselves. But we were having a great time, really, all things considered.
That don't sound too bad, man. Get as far good healthy distance from your command, so they're not making you police call the landing zone or whatever, and then be out there in the ship where you can just hey guys, I'm happy to go with you today.
Yeah. And we got really well looked after by all the guys, everyone there, Rusty's team and 384, and they all looked after us and all.
It's funny when you mention the acronyms in the different language. I remember sitting, I think it was at Fob Dalkey in Afghanistan in 2017, and just to the north of Dalkey there was an SAS base. And we were talking to them. They didn't want us to take off because they were running their op. They didn't want us overhead because when we get overhead, it spoils the surprise.
Yeah.
Apaches aren't very quiet. But it was funny. When we talk over each other on the radio, we call it. I'm sorry, I stepped on you. Like I transmitted over your transmission. But in the British Army, they call it getting clipped, and it was the coolest freaking terminology that I'd ever. I was like, I'm totally stealing that. I'm never saying stepped on again.
Yeah.
I might. Sorry about that. I clipped you. you got clipped. I was like, so cool.
Yeah, no, it was good to sort of. You get the hang of it. You pick it up pretty quick, and before you know it, you're using the same terminology as well. But it was good. But other than that, really, I mean, the way we kind of operate, the role's slightly different to that of the ODAs, with regards to the sort of indigenous forces. But with regards to the planning and how things went about, it's not much different, to be honest. Not much.
What about logistics? Were you able to get everything you need quickly? Different militaries, different supply, techniques. I mean, was there any issues there, one way or the other?
Not really. I mean, we brought a load of. We had an underslung load follow us up with a load of ammo and stuff, and because we didn't really know what was going to be up there, so we kind of the guys are kind of. I suppose the logistics support back in CAF, they sent a load of stuff forward for us, which was fine. But other than that, we're still ammo wasn't it was just ammo and water really, But
Gotcha.
all the comms, no problem with the comms. All the comms were the same and stuff. We just obviously get on the right, get all the right fills and stuff for the with it, But the team guys sorted them out for us, and it was good to go. They sent forward loads of rations for us, British rations. Thinking that because most of the FOBs in Helmand at the time, a lot of them everyone's still on rations. It was pretty austere living. There was everyone's kind of living in like Hesco huts and stuff, and
right.
We got up there and there's like barbecues going and things, and we were so we got all these we landed on our feet here. Definitely landed on our feet. Are
you guys like the Italians? Do you have alcohol in your MREs?
No, unfortunately not.
The Italians had freaking
wine,
every MRE brandy.
Nice.
They had like a shot of brandy in every MRE.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Nice.
No.
Other than that, they weren't very good. But there were a lot of rat fucked Italian MREs at in the corner of the fob.
We would just go and sit on top of the schoolhouse in the evening and just like make an old school coffee and stuff with with like a ration pack coffee and sit up there and just chat and stuff, and the guys would come up and they'd all sort of laugh at us like something from years gone by.
I'll tell you though, like some of my favorite memories of war or being in a war zone is little stuff like that. Like sitting on the roof of a schoolhouse, like eating something. It doesn't even matter what you have. It's just the fact that you're with 3 other guys or 2 other guys or however many, and they're all eating the same shitty food. They're all sitting on freaking MRE boxes. Nobody's on their phone. Nobody gives a shit about anything. You're watching the checkpoint across the river get fucked up and laugh about it. Like, I mean, it'd be a perfect opportunity to have a beer. But, in the absence of one, you crush up some coffee from an MRE and either you make coffee with it or you do like a caffeine dip in your mouth or whatever. It's just, I don't know, those are the moments that I think a lot of guys look back most fondly on. It's just when shit sucked so much that the best part of your day was sitting on the top of the schoolhouse and having shitty coffee.
Drinking some shitty coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, well you become, it's surprising what you get used to, isn't it, right? So what becomes like a pleasure, or what becomes a moment of
a little treat.
A little treat, so just a quiet night, nice, the sun's going down, it's a nice evening, you sit up there with a smoke and a coffee, and you're in, because you're not thinking about you haven't got the day-to-day stuff to think about,
right?
So you're just thinking about what's happened today. Yeah. So you're sitting there and you're like, fuck, did you see that bloke, or did you see that guy come out of that doorway, or did you see that, whatever it is. Or you're just thinking about what's happening tomorrow, but you're not like thinking about, I've got to get the washing machine fixed, or,
right.
Or like, the car needs to go in for a service, or, we've got to like day-to-day stuff. So you kind of, in a weird way, all you've got to do is think about staying alive.
Yeah. I mean, it boils it down to the basic needs, right? Just making sure you survive the next one.
And then there was always a bit of a comfort in that. I found that on every tour, you'd always find, I suppose everyone does it to find their little place where they can, whether it's on a fob or whether it's in CAF or whether it's in Bagram or Bastion even, find somewhere where you can have that little moment to yourself, and it's good. Good times.
So how many more times did you end up going back to Afghanistan after the 2007 tour?
Once more.
Once more, and that was back to Helmand again.
That was back to Helmand. Yeah, so
9.
Yeah, so when I finished at the Panjwai, I went back to Helmand. A few months there. Well, actually, probably a couple of months there, and then I went on to back to the UK. Had a bit of leave, and then went on to basically like a training team for the troops that are going out to Helmand. So you kind of go back and taking them through their pre-deployment, basically their pre-deployment training. So you're running through kind of different scenarios that you faced, or you're building up a kind of a training package. There's the outlines of it are already there, obviously, but then you're there as a kind of specialist just to add current situations to it, current TTPs and things, and how the enemy's operating. So I did that, which was quite weird because we'd literally were putting guys through scenarios that had actually happened.
Right.
So, and you'll always get people questioning, well, this wouldn't happen, and they wouldn't they wouldn't attack you from both sides at the same time because they'd be shooting at each other. You'd be like, yeah, they would.
They do.
Yeah, they will. And they will try and get. They will try and get inside that close air support danger area. To negate. Gun runs and rockets, and and try and close the distance with you quickly. So yeah, I did that for a period of time, which was quite good, and then we kind of roll back into the training cycle ourselves. And go back out for what was then my last deployment. Well, I didn't know at the time, but would be my last deployment.
Yeah.
And I was back in a fires role there. So in the kind of joint fires cell for the company.
Cool.
Out in Upper Sangin. So we had a good tour, but costly to the unit, and but again, good times and bad,
Yeah. And now as Afghanistan kind of closed up for you, I mean, what was it like, as a British soldier to see that kind of the rapid close of Afghanistan?
Well, personally, I took it it hit me pretty hard, to be honest. Actually caught me off guard slightly. It caught everyone off guard, but I kind of think mentally it caught me off guard, and didn't really essentially deal with it that well initially, and probably still trying to get my head around it now. But it's difficult. It's a difficult one, isn't it? And I mean, I've heard you guys say before, and we did our jobs at the time, and I think that's right. Right. We're not the politicians, and we can't affect. You can only affect certain things, can't you? So, but it's hard. I do think about the lads and stuff, and some of the friends and things, and I do think you flick flack between certain trains of thought sometimes. Was it was it worth it? Was it not worth it? Did we But I think it's just, you just got to, I'm just more guarded now and just try and stay on a positive path, with it. But I think we owed the people better. as a nation, not as individuals, but as a nation, as a world, basically, because they're in a shit state now as well, and it's pretty heartbreaking. I was reading a thing on the news today, and it's pretty heartbreaking, actually.
It's very bad right now, economically. The Taliban obviously still suck, but I think the worst thing that people are facing right now isn't the Taliban; it's food,
starvation.
Money.
Starvation, famine. I mean, like I was reading something on the BBC today that the Minister for Health is like some 30-year-old ex-fighter, with no background in healthcare, or he's just some fucking douchebag. And he's in charge of there's no structure, and the people are just suffering. So I mean, you could argue, and people will argue that people were suffering when we were there, but I think there was the intentions were to not make people suffer.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is when we were there, the people that suffered they definitely suffered. The people are always the ones who bear the brunt of war. The people who live in the place where war is happening. But it was the people in Panjwai and Helmand and the Korangal, the people in Kabul, people in northern Afghanistan, people in different areas. They had a chance at something.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that for for the people. You sometimes wonder when you used to see the kids and that, out and about, and you think, well, they're probably, young adults now. They might be in their 20s or so. You think, I wonder what they're up to now. And I wonder how they're getting on. I'm sure some of them have taken one route and some have taken another, but we'll never know.
Yeah. I mean, a few of them are probably stomping around Kabul with wearing their Taliban, garb.
Yeah, exactly.
And a few of them are probably just trying to crank out their lives, man, and just make it work.
Hopefully, a few of them are preparing for the revolution.
Yeah, hopefully a few of them are for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Kieran, we really appreciate you coming on and your diverse background and the multiple deployments. You're able to provide some pretty cool insights that we've not really gotten before, namely the whole Helmand perspective on things. So definitely appreciate you coming on for that. But the way we typically close these things out is we just kind of, we let you have the stage, and if there's something we, either didn't talk about, or if there's a organization you like to talk about, or just a general message you like to get out there, the floor is essentially yours, man. So, drive it home.
Cheers, guys. Well, I suppose firstly, thanks for having me on.
Cheers.
I really appreciate it. It's good to, I've been listening to the podcast for a while, and it's good to get on here and, like you say, share my story. Well, I mean, Sperwan Ghar is going to be, it's always going to be kind of quite a prominent part in my military career, 17 odd years. It's done a lot of stuff, but it's definitely up there with one of the kind of, highlights of, if you can call it a highlight, given the circumstances, but one of the kind of highlights of my career, and getting to work with the American teams and the Canadian guys, and just have that period of time away from the normal AO. Something I'm definitely I'll always remember, and it's part of history, really. There's a lot of history there, all the things that have happened there. Right from the origins of what the sort of the Taliban, right through to the fall of Afghanistan. It's been it's definitely something that will stay with me, and it's I just kind of hope everyone that served out there, you guys, all your friends and comrades, and all the other guys, the Canadians, the guys from the teams and everything, just has long happy lives, and we go on from here. Yeah,
man, for sure. And I think that's definitely been the the continual theme across everybody we talk to is like not just Panjwai, but especially Sperwan Ghar veterans. It's kind of like hallowed ground for some reason. Maybe it's just the prominence of the hill or just how the way it works out there. But that's a special spot of ground, and it was cool that we got to share it across cultures and militaries. So we really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone, you guys or anyone out there is ever over this side of the pond, well, drop me a line. We'll get some pints.
Yep, same.
You don't have to ask me twice. I'll book my ticket as soon as the last COVID variant is done running
That's
around.
It. Yeah, so you're about 13 years.
Yeah, always welcome, guys.
Yeah, Kieran. Well, we appreciate it, man, and yeah, sounds good. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, boys, and keep in touch.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Season 3 of the Panjwai Podcast. We appreciate you sticking with us all the way to the end of the episode. But just one more thing before you go, please hit the like and subscribe button and make sure that you are following us on our social media.